started in black, the favorite first few seconds of the show you have ever had. Full of piss and vinegar am I today, because I have got something for you. You have had this coming to you. You and you and you. Mwah, 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 mwah. Kisses to each and every one of you. Eat that game. Eat that game and continue eating it for another 365 days. All right. The Florida Gators 41-39 over the South Carolina Gamecocks over the weekend. And what a glorious game it was. Loved every single second of it. I love the fact that Florida showed the fight, the grit, the wherewithal to come back from being down 37-27 in the fourth quarter. You know, Florida had been 0-17 in its last 17 games when trailing by double digits in the fourth quarter, but that's what you put the Gamecocks on the schedule for. They are the get well. If you want to get well on the road, 41-39, a massive comeback for the Florida Gators. And, well, Gamecocks, you can chew on that one for a while. I hope it tastes mighty, mighty good. And, you know, if you are a Gamecock fan, I want to share with you that 90% of you are good people. Okay? 90% of you are good people. And because of that, I can't chew on you for very long. I have Gamecock friends. Many of you are very, very good and kind and noble people. But this particular game for me, okay, I have a different approach. This particular game to me in this particular year is personal. You see the Gator hats on display on the Fan Upstate YouTube stream today. It's personal.
They messed around and made it what?
They did. They did. You mess with the bull, you get the horns. So you guys are taking the horns in the posterior today, okay? And not all of you deserve that. Unfortunately, the bottom 10% of the Gamecock fan base is so bad that you guys end up taking the fall for all of them, okay? And you end up having to answer for all of them. You know, a year ago when Florida beat South Carolina, the bottom 10% of Gamecock fans, and these were hundreds of messages, came after my wife. They came after my wife. We're having fun with a game, okay? And they want to come after your wife. First of all, my wife absolutely slays any hope they ever have of a marriage or any marriage they ever have to begin with, okay? These are losers who don't have any picture in their profile, who never come out of mom's basement, okay? But you came after my wife. And when you do that, this game, this year, to me, was always going to be personal, okay? Then, point number 2, the head coach of the Gamecocks came after us, our show, our station, in January. And our other show, the Rob Brown Show, at the time, defended that nonsense. And I'll never believe they did that. You know, like Beamer trashed our entire station. Okay, and there's no defense for doing that, especially when we had him dead to rights on the stuff. When we had him dead to rights on the material. We had him absolutely positively dead to rights, Shane Beamer. We knew what we were talking about. We knew that they reached out to Garrett Riley. We knew that Garrett Riley wasn't interested in South Carolina. We knew that they didn't want to put out there that they got rejected. And then we come out with what we know, which, by the way, was coming from inside South Carolina's football building. Okay? And Beamer decides to put us on blast. Beamer decides to flex his muscles and try to say, oh, you guys have 8,000 followers. Well, 8,000 followers is more than 98% of people have. You know, and that when he did that, that's something that every single person who works at this station today and worked at this station previously should have taken personally. Okay? Because I, frankly, took that personally. So, Shane, how do you like them apples? And while we're speaking of apples, how about the fact that Billy Napier is now 2-0 against the Gamecocks? Translation: The guy South Carolina wanted is now 2-0 against the guy South Carolina got. Again, Beamer and the Gamecocks, how do you like them apples? You know, like people think sometimes that I only say the things that I say behind a keyboard. For those people who think that, can you let them know if you're listening to this right now? Let you tell them, no, Mark is every bit as filled with piss and vinegar on the air as he is online. And if anything, he is more pronounced on the air. Diesel, I got struck by a moment of passion on Friday. This was in a commercial break on CBS Sports Radio, and I just whipped this little bad boy together in a few minutes. From the depths of the Earth's core, the Gamecocks find themselves 2-4. A bit of a bore, searching for more. The mirror reveals there's not much to adore.
I love my job.
Go Gators. Go Gators, baby. Absolutely, positively go Gators. So we've got so many jumping off points. You know, for me, what a win for the Gators. Determination, grit, heart we thought was missing from this team showed up in a big way. With a 1-7 road record heading into this one under Billy Napier, this was absolutely character building. 2 more wins for Florida, and Florida improves over last year's record, which is always a goal. You got to beat Arkansas to do that, and you're probably going to have to get one out of at Missouri, Florida State, Georgia, and at LSU, and it's not going to be easy to do that. Folks, make no mistake, the reason this was very much the battle of mid. You guys know what that means, the battle of mid? It's what people call mediocre people, right? Florida's not a great team. Florida's defense, I mean, South Carolina couldn't run the ball all year, ran all over Florida, okay? 39 points is not an elite team. All right, so Florida is a middle team. South Carolina is a middle team. But the thing for me on this game was it was going to be season shifting for both Florida and South Carolina, with the winner poised to make something of its season and the loser facing a possible tailspin. And this tailspin that faces Shane Beamer right in the face could not be happening to a better dude. Okay? So, my friends, if you're wondering, oh my gosh, man, Mark went dark today. This has been coming for a while. This has been coming for a while. Okay? After today, I'm going to go back to my normal way of covering Beamer and covering the Gamecocks. But damn dude made it personal. And he made it personal with the wrong guy. All right? And when you make it personal with the wrong guy, you get the fire and brimstone that you're getting today on Offsides. By the way, Diesel, I'm not sure if you noticed this. So I went at Beamer on Saturday night because Beamer, after the game, opens his press conference blaming everyone but himself. Like the whole vibe just comes off like, I put him in the right positions. I don't know why they can't get it. What's wrong with these people? Why can't they get it? So I said absolutely zero accountability from Shane Beamer here. Zero. It's everyone's fault but his own. Last night, Shane Beamer opens his press conference by addressing that. Like the first thing he did was address that. You know, Diesel, we continue to be amazed that everyone from Clemson hears our talking points on the show, and they hear the talking points about Brad Brownell. We shouldn't be ashamed anymore. The schools are listening. You know, we shouldn't be surprised that even though Columbia is, 100 miles away, more than 100 miles away, you know, when we challenge Shane Beamer for acting in a classless way, throwing his team under the bus when they lose a game, we shouldn't be surprised at all that that gets back to Shane Beamer because the tweet reached 136,000 people, and he opens his Sunday press conference with that the other day. And he said, look, I've always been the first to say the buck stops with me. Yeah, but Shane, you know, maybe we shouldn't have post-game press conferences right after the game because you weren't in the right headspace. And this little spiel from Shane Beamer on Saturday night really missed the mark with me.
Chesterly ingested, but looking at the defense, just what did you see as the main problem out there?
I saw the main problem, David. We call pressures and we don't run them. We play man coverage and didn't do a great job of keeping leverage. I mean, just in the first half alone, we ran a pressure where the corner came and for some reason he stopped and we gave up an explosive pass because we didn't continue to run the pressure. We had another pressure call where we didn't run it. in the first half. We had a holding penalty in the secondary in the first half. We had another pressure on third down backed up where we're going to be off the field in the first half, and we didn't execute it properly. We talked to our guys about not jumping around the quarterback. We jumped and got beat on a pump fake. We had an offsides in the first half. So just did not play clean football. And then at the end of the day, we had some calls that were perfect calls. We ran a edge pressure. If somebody said, hey, a team is getting ready to run a reverse, what would be the perfect call? You would bring both people off the edge. We did it. We had a perfect call sometimes. And their guy made the play and we didn't. But we got good kids in that room. They're going to continue to make those plays. We've got to continue to do a better job of coaching them and putting them in position.
So you hear it at the end, right? He's like, okay, I better fit this in here. I better fit this in here. Like, I better say that, we fit it in here as coaches. I better say that. But the damage was already done. He opens the press conference. It's everyone's fault but his own. Is that a coach that you're proud that is yours, Gamecock fans? Is that a coach that you're proud of? Okay, because frankly, I would be embarrassed to be a Gamecock today. Texter says, Mark, I can safely say y'all are never getting invited to Media Day now for sure, which means nothing's changed from the way it was before. So, if you can remove nothing from us, what was really lost here? What in fact was really lost here? The answer is nothing. And Gamecock fans, if I may say this, you deserve better. You deserve better than a bottom 10% that's so bad that it soils the name for all of you. You deserve better than a bottom 10% that results in you guys leading the nation in ejections. You deserve better than a coach who gets in Twitter wars with hosts because a host has information the host isn't supposed to have. Okay? You deserve better than that. You do. You guys, 90% of you are good, wholesome people. And yet your program has put you through utter crap. Diesel, do you remember the criteria for being able to have a new team? What was that criteria that we discussed? When is enough and you've been through enough where you deserve to be able to switch to a new team? Because I feel like the Gamecocks have been put through the ringer enough right now. They're embarrassed by their head coach. They're embarrassed by their team's performance. The offensive line is offensive. The defensive line should be playing flag football. The 10% of the fan base just makes a total ass of the entire school. And 90% of these people are good people having to deal with this utter bleep.
Yeah, I don't remember what we discussed before, but I would say 8 out of 10 losing seasons and a scandal that embarrasses your university. I think that's a good reason to be able to change your school. I mean, all you graduates from the University of Southern California.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Right? University of California. By the way, do we have the Jacob Smith? Today would be a great day for the Jacob Smith, Diesel. Would be an awesome day for the Jacob Smith. Guys, the reality is Forrest Gump said stupid is as stupid does. Stupid is as stupid does. And the team doesn't play like a smart team, led by a coach who doesn't coach like a smart coach, who then blames everybody else but himself after the game. South Carolina interviewed Billy Napier not once but twice. And Billy Napier, there are articles about Billy Napier and why he turned down certain jobs. There's one that he's talking specifically about South Carolina, and he says he didn't feel like they had the necessary infrastructure to win there. He doesn't say South Carolina, but the articles about the jobs, about Billy Napier and the jobs he's turned down, and he's had some, quote, jobs in big conferences that have come his way, and why didn't he go there? Folks, if South Carolina interviewed him twice, they wanted him, okay? Believe you me, they wanted him, and they didn't get him. And Florida did. And who knows if it'll work out? I don't know if it'll work out. I don't understand. But I never thought, my friends, we'd reach a point where the Beamer-Muschamp comparison would actually be an insult to Will Muschamp. But here we are. Diesel, Beamer is now 17-15 at South Carolina.
No, we're not the little brother. We're not.
Muschamp was 19-13. Beamer is now 17-15. And now he faces back-to-back road games at Missouri and at Texas A&M. Oh boy. How's Missouri looking, by the way? You see what they did at Kentucky? Wow.
Yeah, they look really good. And I'd be willing to bet, Mark, I'm going to set the over-under at 0.5, and I'm going to put all my money on the under. How many Gamecock fans are going to call us back and say, ooh, we're sorry that we really ripped you guys for this comparison. Really sorry. You might have been onto something. Really sorry about that. How many Gamecock fans are going to do that?
It's an insult to Will Muschamp to compare Shane Beamer to him. You know, Diesel, Dan Lanning, after the Oregon game, the first thing he says is, man, I screwed up. I go back and I look at some of my fourth down decisions. We could have kicked a field goal right before halftime. I went for it. We didn't have to go for a fourth down late. I went for it. The first thing he said, compare that to Shane Beamer. Oh, man, I called blitz. They didn't execute. Called the right defense against reverse. They didn't execute. You know, like, who would want to play for that guy? You know, like, he's, you know, who wants to be around the smartest guy in the room all the time? And I really freaking admire Spencer Rattler and his enthusiasm for this team. I really do. He didn't sign up to have nothing around him, but he's been a baller and a leader in Columbia. And he's playing behind that offensive line that is offensive. But you never, Diesel, see that in his body language. And if the Gamecocks manage to stay afloat the rest of the season, he's the reason why. He's the only reason why.
Roger Carper on the YouTube chat says, if the Gamecock players can't finger paint their names, how do you expect them to know the playbook? Oh, ouch, Robert.
Whoa.
Roger. Madcraft says, I don't think that's it at all with your assessment of Shane Beamer's not taking responsibility. Says he did well to explain in detail what went wrong, then blamed himself for all of that.
Well, it didn't come off
interpretation.
Didn't come off that way to me, man. It really didn't. Let's see here. Texter says at least the Gamecocks didn't blow a 29-0 lead like the Colorado Buffaloes. That's true. Congrats, Mark, on the win. We could have won it if we had a dang defense. So said Spur Daddy. Spur Daddy, you're one of the good guys. You're one of the 90%. You know, I was at Fall for Greenville yesterday, and this guy named Michael recognized us, came up, said hi, and he goes, Mark, I got to be real with you. I want you to give my team hell tomorrow. And I said, oh, you don't have to worry about that. And he laughed, and he said, we deserve it. But so many of these Gamecocks are good people. Diesel and I joke that Gamecocks and Clemson fans are the same people. You know, they just like a different team.
Flip sides of the same coin. You're exactly alike.
But I will tell you that the bottom of the barrel of the Gamecock fans are absolutely the worst. Okay. And so today is personal. I don't mind Gamecock fans. If you are a reasonably minded Gamecock persuasion, I don't mind if you come back to us tomorrow. Okay. I don't mind. And the reason is that I'll get back to my normal coverage of South Carolina tomorrow. But when the bottom 10%ers come after my wife, and when Shane Beamer slanders the whole radio station and never apologizes for it, I mean, Shane Beamer came on this radio station and never apologized for that BS. It's personal. And it's been personal for 365 days.
They unmessed around and made it what?
So today, you're going to get my hell. Today, you're on him. And you're going to sit there and you're going to take it. All right? And that's just how it's going to be. Any questions? 844-FAN phone. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. Y'all be sure to tell those folks on social media that I'm every bit as much a full of fire and brimstone on here as I am on there. Okay? Every bit as much. Let's see here. Texter says, Beamer is too emotional. He needs to take a chill pill before he goes to the presser. I mean, it looked like he was unhinged, man. He was like crumpling up papers, and it just like the guy a number of times now has not looked like a CEO. Just does not look like a CEO. Mark, did you see that very crappy defense? Clayton White should have been fired in that press conference. So says JT and Greer. Yeah, unbelievably, South Carolina's rush defense is way better than it was a year ago. But the pass defense is way worse. All right, guys, you guys can chime in, okay? Like, as is always the case, Offsides is the show that gives you both sides. I give you my interpretation. Diesel gives us his. You give us yours. Am I out of line? Are the Gamecocks out of line? Is Beamer out of line? All I'm going to say is eat that win. Eat that win, Gamecock fans, and I hope it goes down prickly. Offsides continues right after this. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Go Gators, baby. Oh, you're not going to want to miss the Chris Phillips from the Spurs Up Show interview coming your way at about 4:35 this afternoon. I will say this about Chris and the Spurs Up Show. Chris, everyone always asks me, you know, Mark, why do you go on that show? And I've been told by Chris that they say the same thing to him. Why do you have Mark Ryan on your show? And
We got a promo about this.
Yeah.
And I love that promo.
yeah, the reason is twofold. Diesel. The reason is, number one, as Chris Phillips says, I get what he does, and I understand that smack is part of the fun of sports. Okay? It's part of the fun of sports, period. You know, like, enjoy, embrace the smack. It's part of the game. Okay? Number two is, and this is the more important part to me, guys, is I always in my entire life evaluate people based on my own interaction with them. You can't tell me things about a person and make me not like them. Okay? Oh, that Mark Ryan guy, he's awful. Okay, but have you ever met him? Have you ever called his show? Have you ever spoken to him left and right? Or have you corresponded with him in any way? What's he like when you correspond with him? Is he nice? Is he respectful? Is he kind? Okay. Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show has always been respectful of me, to me, of me, etc. He's always been respectful. So that is why I go on his show. And that's why I have him on this show. Okay. You might remember we had another guy on this show by the name of Tim Frisbee, who played for the Gamecocks for a while. And Tim Frisbee started trashing us left and right all over social media, and then still act like he was entitled to come on the show. You don't get, like, you can disagree with us, but when you make it personal and you trash us and you like tweets that are trashing us, your invitation on the show is going to be very, very short-lived. Okay? Chris Phillips, when he disagrees with something I say, he lets me know it. When he feels like I shouldn't have said something that I said, he lets me know it. But it's never, you dumbass, you suck. It's never any of that stuff. Okay? And as a result of that, I invite you guys to do the same thing. How many of you allow yourselves to have opinions formed of people that you've never met? How many of you? Think about that. Like, it's one of those things where I challenge you as a human being. Formulate your opinions based on the people you know and based on the people you met.
Mark, we have a regular new participant in our Upset Picks Challenge.
Oh,
He's a
nice.
friend of mine, my old next door neighbor. You've said his name on the show multiple times. I'm not going to call him out. But he refused to listen to this show for the longest time because he heard, oh, that Mark Ryan guy just bags on South Carolina. All he does is trash on South Carolina. He even went as far as to exclusively listen to the other team's homer station in the upstate just so that he could get sports talk content. Meanwhile, you know, every couple of weeks or every couple of months, I'll reach out and say, hey, man, we got this great subject. We got this great, clip on the show you got to listen to. And he's like, no, I'm not going to listen to that guy. I'm not going to give Mark Ryan any run. I'm not going to give him I'm not going to listen. And now he plays the game every single week. He texts in without even me telling him to. Like, hey, we got the contest going on. He knows. He pays attention. And so all he had to do, his reputation or his opinion of you was based on what he'd heard and read on social media, not from actually listening to the show.
Right.
And now that he's listened to the show a couple times, he loves it.
I can't tell you how many people
He loves
say that, Diesel, about you, about me, about us. I can't tell you how many people say that. So the challenge to you is form your own opinion of people. Okay? Stop, being drones that allow other people to dictate what you think of somebody else. All right? Have you met me? Have you engaged with us? What was it like when you did? Okay? And then make your determination from there. And that's why we have Chris Phillips on the show. Now, in a minute, God forbid, we actually get to talking about the actual game. But I saw this today that is going viral as well. I don't know what it is when I say something I see. Good gosh, Diesel. Now this one has been seen 113,000 times. In key plays for the Florida Gators on Saturday afternoon, there were lights flickering. Okay, like in key moments in key games. Now, I don't know if they were stadium lights or if it was a problem with the camera, but I'm going to tell you, if you look at my tweet and you see when the lights were flickering, It's 4th and 10 for the Gators. And it flickers while Graham Mertz is in the arm motion getting ready to throw. And then it stops flickering while the ball's in the air. And it flickers again when Ricky Pearsall is trying to make a 4th and 10 catch. If Florida doesn't convert that play, they lose the game. And again, all right, like I'm saying, man, lights flickering at Williams-Brice Stadium during key Gator plays on Saturday. Why am I not surprised? Well, Florida just turned out the lights on South Carolina season. Guys, South Carolina and their football operation, they've lost the benefit of the doubt with me. Maybe that was something, and maybe it wasn't. But I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them. Okay? You have a video department that slanders everyone who criticizes them. Okay? Justin King, who runs that, has gone hard after Chris Phillips, and that's inexcusable. You have a head coach who, even when you have information that he called Garrett Riley, wants to ruin your career. Okay? You have a fan base that is known for getting in fights with people and getting ejected from their stadium. You want me to put past South Carolina that they flickered lights right before Florida's key plays?
Well,
really?
you did hear the audio where the referee had to tell Colorado's PA announcer to stop playing music and sound effects while the other team was trying to hike the ball. So it does happen. It does happen. And that referee didn't tell the PA announcer to stop doing it because it happened one time.
Right.
He told him to stop doing it because it happened multiple times.
Right.
So it's not an accident. So it very well could have been, a legitimate attempt to distract the other team in key moments.
And if this were happening at Notre Dame against USC, and it happens during a 4th down for Caleb Williams, and Notre Dame says, look, man, it was the cameras, it wasn't the stadium lights, are bad, Notre Dame has earned the benefit of the doubt, right? They've earned that. They're not associated with this stuff. South Carolina, to me, has lost the benefit of the doubt. I don't know that there was something sinister involved here, and I don't know that there wasn't. Okay. But especially to some of these bottom 10 percenters, I'm happy to float the tweet out there and let South Carolina fans go crazy with anger. I'm happy to do it because, frankly, those morons deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. And when I say that, again, I want to accentuate. I'm talking about the bottom 10% of Gamecock fans, which is the worst section of any fan base I've ever dealt with in an 18-year career in this industry. Okay? The worst. This is personal today. Okay? You are seeing a very, very charged up and fired up Mark Ryan today because they made it personal. And when you make it personal with me, well, you mess with a bull, you get the horns. 844-326-3663. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-FAN-PHONE is the number to get to us on the show today. Do you guys think I pulled any punches? Should I be more aggressive today? Have I done a halfway decent job telling you how I feel about this? By the way, now Florida is 5-2. Florida's over-under win total, Diesel, for the entire year was 5.5. So they got 5 games to go. They've got 5 wins. They got to figure out a way to get one more to beat the over-under. So remember, Florida's over-under was 5.5 wins. South Carolina's over-under was 6.5 wins. South Carolina is now 2-4 with road games coming up at Missouri and at Texas A&M. Which means to hit the over, South Carolina would have to win 5 of its last 6 games to hit the over for the season. Good luck. Who I root for are the good Gamecock fans, okay? Who I'm going to bury the hatchet with and move on from is Shane Beamer, okay? Because I'm not going to let his hissy fits affect my coverage of a major team in this area. I'm not going to allow that, okay? Who this is against and who will never be on my side. And, the folks that I enjoy watching not have a single thing to cheer for are the bottom 10 percenters of the Gamecock fan base. Those are the ones like I delight in swimming in their demise. I absolutely delight it. I drink it up, and I will continue to do so because they frankly have had it coming to them for quite some time. 844-326-3663. And you know what the other thing is, Diesel, is that, we've studied the demographics of our audience, okay? 57% of our audience are Clemson fans first, okay? That number, the official number, is 57%, okay? 24% of our audience consider themselves Gamecock fans first. And that leaves 19% who are other. The other is comprised by Furman fans, Georgia fans, Florida fans, Auburn fans, other fans, right? So here's how I look at a half an hour like this, like we've had to open the show today, okay? 24% of our audience are South Carolina fans. Half of that audience, 12%, may not listen to this show because they want the homer, the rainbow, the gumdrops, and there's not much of that to be found right now. So if I have to say goodbye to the 12%, I shake your hand. Thanks for giving us a shot. I wish you well. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, okay? But the other 12% are going to stay because they know we do a really good show and they like the content. And even though we might tick them off sometimes, they like what we bring. They like the fire and brimstone. They like the big opinions, okay? So I look at it like we still have 88% of the audience available to us, almost 90% of the audience available to us. And that's fine because the Gamecock homers were never going to be a fit for this show anyway. It was never going to happen. I was impressed with South Carolina's running game on Saturday. I was pleased to see them finally taking the training wheels off of Nick Harbor and using him for a big 55-yard play. Xavier Legette is that dude. Spencer Rattler, I'm serious. I'd draft him with a first-round pick.
Outside of the final interception, which was just a terrible decision. He threw into triple coverage.
Diesel, what were his options there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it, but still.
I mean, I hear you. I value the chutzpah that guy has so much, okay? I really, really do. For Florida, it was more about the heart and the will. The roster isn't there yet for the Gators. You've got Boardingham developing to go along with Ricky Pearsall, and because Florida has multiple aerial weapons developing now, you can't double Ricky Pearsall, which resulted in Ricky Pearsall catching the game-winning pass. He's Florida's Adam Thielen, is Ricky Pearsall, and he's a heck of a player, all right? The defense was awful, okay? Graham Mertz is so much better than anyone thought he was. Chris Phillips had him ranked as the worst quarterback in the SEC. Graham Mertz is top 5 in the SEC, and Billy Napier deserves a ton of credit for signing Graham Mertz, but the defense isn't there. The offensive line isn't there. The ability of 5-star playmakers isn't there, okay? Just like with the Carolina Panthers. If Adam Thielen is your best playmaker, you've got a problem, right? That's the same thing with the Gators. Ricky Pearsall is your best playmaker. Houston, you have a problem, okay? That's a problem. So the roster isn't yet where it needs to be, but it was a win that allows Florida to make something of its season, and it's a loss that makes it very, very difficult for the Gamecocks to make something of theirs. What do you guys think? Your analysis of the first 2 segments of this show. Were we fair? Were we unfair? Let us know. 71307 on the madworldattractions.com text line, and we'll be back with our interview with Jim Szoke right after this. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the fan upstate, joined right now. Very appreciative of this interview every single week. Jim Szoke, the Carolina Panthers broadcast team, sets aside a few minutes to spend some time with us here on Offsides. Jim, in any area, are you getting the sense that Carolina is getting closer in any way?
I've made a production decision that we are only to speak of the first quarter of the Miami game, and that's it. So we win 14-0 is what I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I thought that quarter we saw first of all the defense, a couple of 3-and-outs against Miami, so that was a great start defensively. That did not hold up, of course. And then offensively, I think we got a glimpse of what the expectation is of what Bryce Young will be as he gets more games under his belt. I mean, he looked really sharp. I mean, when you see the game in person, I mean, you really see, the way he throws the ball, the way he looks and anticipates better than you can on television. And you can see that there is some special arm talent and certainly the quick processing and all that. And again, we're like big shots. He did miss on a go route to DJ Shark. I'm sure they've gotten that one back that went out of bounds. But a lot of the kind of intermediate stuff to Adam Thielen and just, hitting the target on the run. I mean, a lot of good throws that were made in there. Terrace Marshall plumbered one he should have caught. But obviously Miami is exceptional and as fast and as everything as you heard they were in person. No doubt about that. Panthers are not to that level, obviously, right now. But I do like the development of Bryce Young. And, of course, you probably heard the news today. Frank Reich is turning over the offensive play calling to offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. So they'll have the bye week to work through that. And we'll see what the offense kind of looks like when they get back at it against Houston.
Jim, it's funny. My co-host on the Carolina Kickoff show said that he thought Sunday looked like one of those kind of weird days where odd things were going to happen. And we saw it happen. We saw, Cleveland beat San Francisco. We saw teams that shouldn't win football games winning football games. And it kind of looked like that in that first quarter. So what, from your perspective, what went wrong after that first quarter? Was it just exceptional adjustment from Miami, or did the Carolina Panthers just sort of play outside of themselves in the first quarter?
I mean, speed kills is the real thing, and nothing epitomized it more than just Tua just loading up and throwing it to the fastest guy in the field, Tyreek Hill. And Dante Jackson is really fast. So he on defense and DJ Shark on offense are the two fastest Panthers. And it was not even close in the foot race with Tyreek Hill, not even close. So, I mean, they have that ability if he can get past you. And that was press coverage that you can't. You just have to kind of lay back and give him the underneath stuff because it's really hard even to get him at the line of scrimmage because he's so quick. He's elusive to even get that press push on him. So that was just an example of what they started to do, just taking bigger shots down the field. And then that loosened up the running game with obviously Mostert had a huge day in the running day. But it's a team that averaged 36 points and 513 yards per game coming in. They scored 70 on Denver. And with having essentially the whole secondary out. You did have Dante Jackson being missed the week before with a shoulder injury, but the other three starters are out. Shaq Thompson's out. Down the list we go of guys who aren't playing right now. It's just not a good matchup for Carolina. They don't have the kind of depth. I mean, truly, Farley was a guy that came up from the practice squad to start in this game, not just play. Sam Franklin starting at safety, who's a core special teams player. These guys are either backup or special teams player, and you're playing really at this point a historically incredible offense statistically in the NFL right now with Miami.
Jim, I'm sure we're all clueless as to exactly what's going to happen, but do you have a hunch? I mean, do we have a sell-off of players of Carolina coming to recoup some of the draft capital that was lost?
I think, there's been reports. You see Albert Breer threw a bunch of names out there last week. So I think, again, they're going to listen. They're going to get phone calls. So it's got to be, what's given back in exchange, though. So to me, it's like, yeah, if there's a big dollar contract of somebody and you don't foresee them being a core player over the next 2-3 years, it makes sense. I'm not one that gets excited about acquiring 6th-round draft choices and things like that. So I'd rather have a good player if they're kind of a young guy that could help this team. But, it wouldn't surprise me if at least maybe a player or two isn't moved for that very reason. And again, you've got a new coaching staff here that inherited the roster. So finding pieces that fit what they're trying to do in terms of scheme and all that. Some players can be good players, but they don't fit what you're doing. And if that kind of trade develops, it wouldn't shock me. And it would be something like that, I would suppose. I'm kind of maybe day 3, draft pick is what I would think for any player that's not Brian Burns, and hopefully Brian's around here for a long time.
Jim Szoke of the Panthers broadcast crew. Jim, Steve Smith, a name that holds a lot of weight within the Carolina Panthers organization. He had his public dust up last week with Jerry Jeudy, a name that has been floated around with respect to players the Panthers could potentially go after to give Bryce Young some help. I don't expect you to know if Jerry Jeudy is a legitimate target of this franchise or not, but is Steve Smith's word enough to get all of the Carolina Panthers brass to pass up on Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I don't think they base their personnel on what Steve would say, but Steve's obviously very well respected. So it'd be like, what does the coaching staff want? What do they see as a fit? Obviously, Steve has an excellent eye for what an NFL wide receiver should be. And basically, his overarching comment that he's just a mid-range player who happened to go in the first round. So if the Panthers acquired him, in their case, it wouldn't be for a first-round pick, obviously. So if it's something where it's like for the right price and the right bargain off the bargain bin, then maybe it makes sense because you're not the one giving up the first-round pick. Because really, Steve's comment was that he's just an average player. So if you give up a average draft positioning, if they thought a chemistry with Bryce existed or that they could work with him and get more out of him than he's gotten out of Denver, I don't think they would eliminate that, obviously, in that situation.
Rain or shine, and there's been more rain than shine, but Jim thrives in the rain, and we appreciate him joining us each and every week. Thank you so much, Jim, and we truly do look forward to our time with you each week and hope you have a great one, all right?
Just focus on that first quarter, that's all I say.
Jim Szoke, like Diesel, he's got a skill that I need to learn. He manages to have fun being employed by a team that stinks without ever saying anything that's going to get him in trouble. And there's a skill involved in that, like focus on the first quarter. The rest of the quarter's nothing to see here. We asked him if his family has any jokes for him because he's also the play-by-play voice of East Carolina. He never sees a win. And he laughed at that. So like he has fun through the misery, and he manages to not say anything that's going to stick a fork in him. It's incredible.
Hey, there's a lot of teams that aren't fun to cover, but you know what is fun? Cash and paychecks.
Yeah, that's right.
I really enjoy that part of covering the team.
That's right. All right. So Diesel has an unbelievable idea that involves a couple of you and involves me too. And we're going to unveil that idea to you next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Oh, I can't forget this. Got to have this on for the duration of the stream today. Great to be with you guys. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the fan upstate. It is time for all Gamecocks to get their comeuppance today. Enjoy it. Embrace it. It'll be over by tomorrow. Okay? It will be over by tomorrow. 844 fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. Chris Phillips gets his comeuppance about 33 minutes from right now. Chris Phillips bet me that the loser would have to wear the other team's hat on the show Monday. And I thought that meant that Chris Phillips and I had to get together and like swap hats or something. But Chris actually went out and bought a Florida game. God, that must have been a painful purchase. You know, imagine buying that after you just wore the L over the weekend. But credit to Chris, man. Like, he wore it. He owned it. Frankly, folks, I think he looks a lot better in orange and blue. You know, Diesel, again, remind me, what are the criteria for you've had it enough with your team? You know, like, you've earned the right. You're not a traitor. Your home country has not treated you well enough to keep you.
Yeah, again, I don't remember what we discussed last time around. This is just new criteria coming off the top of my head. You can tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right here. But I think it's 8 out of 10 losing seasons and a scandal that's embarrassing to the university.
Yeah. Okay. Or end. And. Okay. So both have to be.
Yeah.
Both have to be there.
Yeah.
So
just a bunch of losing seasons. You don't get to leave your fan base because of that.
Okay.
Just because one embarrassing thing happens, you don't get to leave because of that. But if both of those things combine, I think, Captain Planet, Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart, those things combine and gives you the right to leave your fan base.
Without looking, I can tell you SMU had that. Okay. Right. How many losing seasons in the last 10 have there been for Gamecock fans? Anybody? Bueller, Fry? How many total losing seasons have there been? I'm seeing that a lot of people are getting very active with the block button. Mongo has apparently blocked Chris Phillips today. Mongo, there's no reason for that.
Mongo, you are a bleep talker in chief, and you've blocked another bleep talker like you? Come on, man.
All right, so Diesel, let's bring you in here and share with our audience your brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Which is not only going to do me some good, but also a couple of our really valued listeners.
Yeah, so I've got a good friend who worked in radio for a very, very long time, very talented guy, and he just so happened to be traveling through town today. He stopped by the house. We hung out for a little while tomorrow. You know, you start chatting. We started hung out for a little while this morning. We started chatting, finding out like what's going on in your life. It's been a while. What's going on in your life? It's been a while. And this guy, he's a certified life coach now. He's a life coach. And a lot of what he said he does now is he's, getting parties together and trying to help them square things away. He's not a therapist. He's a life coach. It's all about coming to terms with issues you may have with someone and moving past that, learning how to move past that to have a brighter future. So, I thought it would be a good idea to bring him on, not right this moment, but in the future, next couple of days, next week or so, and try to figure out a way to repair the damage between Mark Ryan and South Carolina Gamecock fans. And he's going to life coach you and hopefully life coach Gamecock fans collectively in the listening audience to not be upset at you. And then you guys can move forward in a positive way.
But that wasn't all, Diesel. There was another specific.
Wait.
What is there was another specific intervention.
Correct.
That this life coach was
correct.
Also
now, to be able to achieve this, I think this is something that absolutely needs to happen. But to be able to achieve this, we would need to get permission from these two parties to come on the air and life coach it out and figure out a way to move forward positively going forward. And those two people are Mongo and Shadow of Death Valley. Those two, they go at it constantly. And Mongo is probably typing in right now. He's in the live chat right now, probably laughing with a big smile on his face. He's like, yeah, this sounds like fun. Those two go at each other a lot, to the point that I had to yell at them last week. I had to yell at Mongo. Mongo, stop. Stop. You are doing this. You know you're doing it. Stop. And he can't stop. He literally cannot stop going at Shadow of Death Valley. And Shadow of Death Valley can't stop going at him. So I thought it would be a great idea to bring this life coach on the show and see if we can repair the relationship between Mongo and Shadow of Death Valley. And I know Mongo would be down for it because he's a fun guy. He's been on the show before. Did a fantastic job in the segment that he hosted of the show. I guess it was about 6 months to a year ago, something like that, when he came on. Did an absolutely fantastic job.
He did.
We love you, Mongo, on the show. We really, really do. So the question is, can we get Shadow of Death Valley to agree? Because I don't think he's ever called into the show. I know he's messaged in a lot.
No, he is very, very serious about keeping his cover. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like,
Well, you don't have to give names on the air.
I struggle with that, Diesel, because Shadow of Death Valley has been like, I can tell he's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
I can tell he's a super successful guy. I can tell that.
What if it's like Mayor Knox White?
He's got a big heart, right? Like he's got a big heart, but I criticize other people who don't show themselves because it's always, remember last year, Diesel, there was a Gamecock fan that had like a goose head and we got him like he got banned because he was making threats, got banned from Twitter. Like it's hard to respect the people who don't put their name on it. But then like you get like a Shadow who's like a really good dude and a successful dude and a smart dude, and he's got a big heart, and he'll like posts from Gamecocks when they're actually like being objective, right? So I don't really know what to make of that, but I do appreciate what Tim Lipsy says here on the YouTube chat. He says, Mark, the real Gamecock fans ain't mad at you. Being a Gamecock fan for over 40 years, and this is just Gamecock football. Guys, like, I just can't tell you. I believe you guys deserve better than this. Like you deserve better than a coach that blames everyone else but himself after the game.
Okay, so it seems as if we've got a potential yes for Mongo. Mongo, I need confirmation on whether or not you would be willing to come on the show for a segment and life coach it out, just you and this life coach and Shadow of Death Valley, and see if we can get you two together to come together in a more positive way. Now, Mongo, that is not a constructive thing to say. First of all, he says, absolutely, I'll come on the show. And then he says Shadow of Death Valley is a coward and he won't come on the show. That's Mongo's opinion. And see, that's exactly what we're trying to fix here.
Okay.
That's exactly what we're trying to
fix. Shadow, let us tell you this, okay? If you come on the show as Shadow of Death Valley, we will not reveal anything about your call-in. We won't reveal the name that it shows on the screen or the number or anything about that. If you want to come on the show, Shadow, and take part, okay, you can maintain your cover. But this life coach would be good for all, would be good for all of us. Gamecock fans, you deserve better. Like 90% of you are good people, really good people, okay? And, like it's like you can't, it's like the crazy uncle in your family. You can't corral him. The bottom 10% just ruins it for everybody and makes me really revel in spiking the football on you today. You guys are good people. Yeah, I told you I met a Gamecock fan. Like we were at Fall for Greenville Diesel yesterday for 2 minutes. And this guy comes up and goes, Mark Ryan, yes. Hey, Mark, my name is Michael. I'm a Gamecock fan, but I still love you. And I'm like, yeah, Michael. And he goes, man, give us hell tomorrow. We deserve it. And I said, I will. But how about the fact, Gamecock fans, like, Diesel, can you explain this to me? I'm in Greenville, and we're at Fall for Greenville, and it's a festival. And I took note of this, Diesel. I saw 12 different people when I was there wearing Gators orange and blue with the Gator logo on it. I saw 2 people wearing Gamecocks gear. This is the state of South Carolina that we're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why would I see 12 Gator fans and 2 Gamecock fans in the state of South Carolina?
Well,
I assure you it ain't like that in the state of Florida.
There was a time period, Mark, where, not my words, these are not my words, where people would say that Gamecock fans would hide in plain sight. Meaning Gamecock fans were going out.
I've said that.
But they weren't wearing their gear. You can go out wearing any color you want, but they're not putting on Gamecock hats and sweatshirts and T-shirts and all that, beanies, none of that stuff. So
That's what was happening yesterday in downtown Greenville, hiding in plain sight yet again. Let's get to Crazy Ralph. Oh, I'm so looking forward to this call, Crazy Ralph. The floor is yours, sir.
Yes, I got nothing but friggin' love for you, Mark, because I'll tell you what, you hit the nail on the head. We got a child running our football program right now. He's like a little boy in a candy store. Somebody's giving him the keys to daddy's car. He's running it right into the ground. Look at this moron he got to be our defensive coordinator. That guy's secondary couldn't cover our bed with a sheet. I sat there all night long, about to pull every one of my last hairs out listening to this friggin' guy try to coach a defense. When is this going to be over? When is this nightmare going to end? I have to know. And you know what? You know what else you're right about? Our fans suck. I'm so tired of getting online and getting on Facebook and going to these articles where they're trying to pay tribute to the greatest college football coach in the history of college football, Stephen O. Spurrier, the greatest coach we ever had. We had to get him from Florida to teach us how to win. And we got morons in our freaking fan base that run this guy down. Every time there's an article posted about him, it drives me nuts. Like we were ever even friggin' relevant before that guy came along. And they wanted to bring his team out and, salute him the other day for homecoming. And all I saw was a bunch of Gamecock trash online calling him a quitter and a loser and we don't want him back. Are you kidding me, man? The best memories I ever have as a Gamecock fan are because of that guy. I'm more upset at our fan base at the way they treat the great head ball coach than I could ever be at you for you guys just doing what I expected to happen for us to have a chance to win and then crap the bed in the end. So congratulations to you, Mark. Congratulations to Napier. I'm out, brother.
Diesel, can you please make that the best thing we heard today, tomorrow, Wednesday? How many drops did he give us? The defense couldn't cover a bed with a sheet.
When's this nightmare going to end? That one's going in.
And then, Diesel, let's get that call up on social media, can we? Like, how do we get a whole call up on social media? Crazy Ralph, you have so much talent. I got to tell you, brother, you have the talent to do sports media because you bring the passion, you bring the noise. There's a lot of hosts out there that are afraid to have a big opinion, they don't want anyone to be mad at them.
We should bring Crazy Ralph on the way Howard Stern used to bring that dominatrix on to do the weather.
Yeah. But your ass is going to be hot.
It's cold. It's real cold.
Yeah.
But your ass is going to be plenty hot. I just want to know if Crazy Ralph was listening the other day when we played those angry Patriots fans calling into Boston radio, and I want to know if he's related to any of them.
You sounded like it. So, Crazy Ralph, that is a talent, my friend. The fact that you can bring such a strong opinion with facts and passion and the one-liners, that is a real talent.
Mongo says, this tells me everything I need to know about Ralph. Spurrier killed this program.
Oh, come on.
Are you kidding me, Mongo?
Come on, dude. Spurrier is the only good thing that ever happened to your program. All right. Honor him. Appreciate him. Let's get to Nelson from Spartanburg, who's up next. I appreciate the call, Nelson. You're offsides.
Okay, that last guy gave me a little something else to rant about.
That's tough to follow there.
Number one, going into this season, we knew everybody in August. I mean, all the Carolina guys on radio were saying this is a 6-win roster. We're going to take some lumps this year because the roster is just not there. So that's it, But I appreciate Beamer. This first time I saw him a little bit mad going into halftime this past week when he was saying, we're telling our guys, we're coaching, do not jump when you get to the quarterback. He said they're leaving their feet. But the thing that pisses me off, and I've been screaming the whole weekend, and I was doing this 3 weeks ago in another game. These players have got to stop running full speed at the quarterback and at a receiver. They had this game won 3 times and did it the same way every time. They had the quarterback nailed in the backfield, and that stupid egghead ran straight at him full speed, and he didn't even stay outside of him. All he had to do was stay outside of him 2 feet, and the guy has to go back inside or he gets nailed. Instead, he runs straight at him inside, and the guy just spins off and goes outside and has 5 seconds to throw the ball. Same thing when the defensive backfield had them covered, and he has to throw 1 yard to the receiver out in the flat. And stupid Marcellus Dial did the same thing again, ran straight at that guy full speed. And instead of slowing down and making the guy having to try to fake him out and slowing him down for 1 second where 3 other guys were coming up to help, He runs straight at him and then whiffs straight by him, full speed. I am so tired of seeing that. These guys have got to know you can't. You all he had to do was just stop and make the guy. The guy made the first down. It was third.
Well, Nelson, can I interject something here?
Yeah.
I
ahead.
think you're missing. I think you're missing the mark, Nelson, by not putting any of the responsibility on Beamer, especially when you consider that the coaches who are going to become great coaches, the coaches who are going to pop, almost always do so in year 3. Now we know that Beamer is not going to do it in year 3. When you watch this team in year 3 under Beamer, should they not be playing with more discipline than they are in year 3? Should they not have better offensive and defensive line play in year 3 under Shane Beamer? I get the fact that you like the guy, okay? But let's call a spade here. Let's be a little bit objective. They're not where they should be under his leadership.
They are the players. The best players he has right now are the freshmen he's recruited. Next year they're going to be darn good, and in 25 they're going to be loaded. So I like where they're headed. But we knew going into this year that because of the players that lost in the transfer portal and some of the people injured, that they were going to be hurting with numbers.
Okay, well, but
right
Nelson, the over under is 6.5 wins. Okay, right now you'd be lucky to get 5. So the over under was 6.5, meaning you win the bet if they win 7, you lose the bet if they win 6. Right? So they are underachieving even those mediocre standards.
Well, when you got I don't know, it's mediocre. If you win 6 games with this roster, with the toughest schedule in the country, pretty much you're okay. We knew that. Well, I'd say we knew that it was going to be a little, not a step back this year, but that it was going to be tougher this year because of the personnel and the numbers we have.
Hey, Nelson,
right now he's so short of players. But I'm tired of seeing players being put in the position to make plays and then just whiffing on the play. That game was over with 3 times, and the correct play was called, and the player whiffed on the play because he ran full speed at the guy with the ball and just ran right by him.
Nelson, I appreciate your perspective. Thank you very, very much for the call. I think that also falls on the head coach, though. You know, everyone's accountable for poor play, right? Every single player is responsible for that. You are dead right. There were 3 different occasions in that game, Diesel, 3 different 4th downs where if South Carolina stops one of them, they win, including that 4th and 11. And by the way, Diesel, you've now seen the flickering lights on that play. That was the play he's talking about where they're blitzing Graham Merce, and instead of going from the outside and make him go back inside, they allowed him to get outside, and he's able to just roll to the right and complete it. I mean, there was no discipline on that blitz whatsoever. What did you see? Did you see any flickering lights at opportune times?
There was definitely some flickering lights. I had seen that a little bit, and I just watched it. I'm like, is it just poor video quality? What's going on with this? No, it's not. As Graham Mertz rolls to his right and winds up to throw the ball, the lights definitely dim and then come back up. And then right as the wide receiver is about to catch the ball, the lights dim and then come back up. And now this is only made possible by this modern invention of LED lights all over these stadiums. Used to not be possible. You know, if you flipped off the old halogen light bulbs or whatever they're made of, those things would take an hour to cool off before you could turn them back on. Remember, like your elementary school gym class, if they turned the lights off, they had to sit there and cool off for a while before they would come back on. But no, not with these LED systems. They can do that. They can flicker the lights. They can mess with them. So I'm not saying that somebody in South Carolina's stadium crew did that. I'm just saying it sure as hell looks like it.
Yeah, and I echo what Diesel just said, right? Like, I feel like South Carolina and their program, with me, they've lost the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to share something like that when I see it because I don't trust them. I don't trust them.
IT Gamecock is now dubbing this Lightgate. You like Lightgate or Flickergate? Which one is better?
Either one is fine by me. All right, we'll get to a lot of your texts and calls and tweets next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Okay, let's get caught up on what you guys are saying because there's a lot to get to here. Okay, there's a lot to get to here. Okay, I'm going to fly through these. I want you guys to be heard. All right. Let's see here. Boy, there's a lot of text coming in, Diesel. Wow, you guys are the best. Let's see here. Total buffoonery, says Hunt GBT. Total buffoonery.
That was buffoonery. That was complete and total buffoonery.
There you go. Spur Daddy says, if only we would have gotten Kirby Smart. It was so close. Texter says, Mark, a lot of Florida fans were wanting Napier fired last year as well. Next text. Guys, when I die, I want the Gamecocks to be my pallbearers so they can face me and let me down one more time. Tim and Gaffney. Be my pallbearer so they can let me down one more time. Mark, what are your thoughts about the major comeback Stanford had over Colorado? My thoughts are that think about what the attention would have been last year if that happened to Colorado. It would have been a footnote. This year, because of Prime, it was front page news. Roster's not there yet, but he's doing a lot of great work. If the Chickens want to go bowling this year, a texter says they better rent a lane at spare time. Oh, these lines are great, guys. They're great. Maybe in 2 years we'll get rid of Beamer and hire Coach Prime. Texter says our ass is already tender from the spanking we got from Florida. Can you lighten up some, Mark? I'd like to be able to sit down sometime this week. Oh, let's see here. Texter says, Mark, I've always been a loyal listener to the station from day one. 2 years or so prior to you coming here, I always thought I was fair. Maybe I was wrong. If I don't want SC fans, then just tell us. I'll gladly stop listening. No one condones people going after your wife or you or your wife or anyone personally. No, man, we want Gamecock fans, and you're welcome here. But you're not going to get a show that doesn't criticize you. When you need to be criticized, you're going to be criticized. Okay? Same with Clemson. Same with South Carolina. Clemson fans will tell you we do the same thing with them. How come the lights were flickering at the Gamecocks game? We've got to that. Texter says, I agree with you, Mark. Us Gamecock fans deserve better. I'm about fed up with broken and shattered dreams. Texter says, classless culture in Columbia. They fight their own fellow fans. Good win for your Gators. Thank you, Texter. That bottom 10% doesn't listen, Mark. I understand the whole shock jock approach, but the Gamecock fans that you say are good people are having to listen to you bash them. Not exactly fair to us good people. I think I've made that distinction clear, though, Monko. I think I've made that clear on the show today. As a Gamecock fan, we deserve for you to give us heck. Go ahead and ramp it up, Mark. So says Spur Dazzy. Texter says, get it. Get him, Mark. Love your energy and passion today more than ever before. That stupid chicken rooster thing was Gator bait Saturday. Hashtag go Gators. Love you too, sir. Could the Gamecocks really fall off their rocker and only win 2 games? I think 4 is the minimum. They still have Jacksonville State and Vanderbilt. Hey, Mark, I got a good bottle of wine to help you relax. So says Jack from the tasting room. Jack, sounds good. I'll see you later. Tasting room, Diesel. Ever been?
No, never been, but I did go to Juniper over the weekend.
I
absolutely loved it.
I love it, Texter says. Keep going at the bottom feeders. Be even more aggressive. Texter says, Mark, you don't have to be nice. You hate all of USC. You hate their alumni and fan base. Just tell us to F off and we will. No, I actually don't feel that way. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Okay? Texter says, Mark, let Mark cook those dumbass chickens. Texter says, seriously, they're the worst fan base in all of college football. You see where this text line is going? You got the 1 or 2 guys that is not supportive, and the rest of the audience get it. They get it. They get the show. You know, our audience understands when they're in for a spanking and when they're in for a party. And if you're a Gamecock fan today, you're in for a spanking. Okay? There will be party days in the future. Today is not that day. Chris Phillips joins us next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere, Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Chris Phillips, you don't think he's ducking us here, do you, Diesel? You don't?
No.
don't think
Chris,
so?
Chris isn't that kind of guy.
Chris isn't a ducker? Okay. We have Chris Phillips scheduled for this segment. We got a no answer when we just called Chris in the last segment. Yeah, Chris doesn't strike me as a ducker either, but I do not know what is going on there. So let us do this as we await Chris Phillips. And Diesel, if you could shoot him a text or something, would love to get him on. And he's got to face the music here. He's really got to face the music. Texter says, okay, seriously, Gamecock fans are the worst fan base in college football. They run their mouths like Alabama with a Vanderbilt trophy case. Probably won't even make a damn bowl game this season. Their fan base is basically the personification of a Jerry Springer show. Wow. Let's see here. I told myself I was going to tune in today and get absolutely berated. I told myself I wasn't going to tune in today and get absolutely berated by Mark Ryan. But here I am. Absolute heartbreaker. I was there. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry you were there, and I appreciate you tuning in to Face the Music. Texter says, I accidentally sat in the Gator sections, and the fans were nice as hell. Bunch of people were leaving at 5 minutes, and I told them, hold on, y'all. This is SEC football. It ain't over till it's over. Joined right now by Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. We were worried you might be ducking us for a minute there, Chris, but happy to see you're not. And as is always the case, we have a very, very special treat for you as well, Chris, today and every year when this happens. Maybe this is the year he'll sing it with me, Jason. What do you think? Maybe this is the year he'll sing it with me. Okay? The next bet is Chris Phillips sings it with me. All right, Chris, here we go. Go, Gators! Come on, Chris, what do you got? Go, Gators! Let me feel it, Phillips. Go, Gators! Come on, Gators! Get up and go, Chris. When will you learn to stop making bets with me on the mighty orange and blue, my friends? Despite the fact that if South Carolina had just stopped one of 3 fourth downs, I would be wearing the Gamecock hat right now. Chris, I appreciate you facing the music, my friend. I was really rubbed the wrong way by the way that Shane Beamer threw everyone under the bus in his post-game presser except him. Did that bother you the same way it bothered me?
Well, Mark and Diesel, first things first, let me say I appreciate you having me on. And I'll say this, Mark, next year you'll have to include that in the bet because obviously I've been facing the music all day, donning the orange and blue cap, which your good friend Chris Doring, former Gators receiver, really love to see that I've never looked better than I had today.
I agree. Listen, there's room on the Gator bandwagon, sir. There's room. Okay.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. But, admittedly, Mark, when I first saw it on late Saturday night, I don't know if it's just because I was still kind of in the days of watching that game or what have you. It didn't really strike a chord with me at that point. But going back and watching it on Sunday, I'm a bit torn on it because it's one of those things where you'd like to see your head coach take accountability off the jump. And, when he's asked the question, he was very quick, right? I thought to throw some guys under the bus. And it's a disturbing comment for a number of reasons, right? We've all got our commentary on Clayton White, the defensive coordinator. But if you're going to go out there and say, we're calling certain things and they're not being done or they're not being executed, it's like, well, why are they not being done so? Like, are players not listening to you, or do you not have the proper talent or proper ball players out there that can execute what you're asking? Like, 2 and 2 just don't add up to 4 in that scenario. On the flip side, Mark, I would say that this is the new age of college football where it's NIL and it's portal and it's professionalized. And, I think as coaches, Mark, as the heat turns up on them earlier and earlier and earlier in their tenure, I think you're going to see them clap back a little bit more. We've seen other coaches do this as well. And so I wasn't totally stunned by it. I will say this, though, Mark. Whatever excuses you want to make, if you're on the Gamecock side, if you want to attack Beamer, if you're not on that side, that's totally fine.
I'm just tired of seeing Shane Beamer make headlines when South Carolina loses. Like, even if he wasn't in the wrong and he feels like he's not, and Gamecock fans feel like he's not, we can all agree that I don't know if Shane Beamer needs to do some breathing exercises or yoga or meditation before he goes and speaks to the media after a loss, but he just got to stop being led by emotion, because everything he says can and will be used against him. So I think it's one of those things where Shane Beamer, he's still a young coach, and we talked about, it's how he handles the media was one of those things I'm going to be interested to see how that evolves. And he's just still got a long way to go, because again, everything he says can and will be used against him. In that scenario, you're the head coach making $6.5 million. I know players are paid. It's best though that you just own up to it. Say, we got work to do. We got to coach better, keep it moving, and leave all that, throwing guys under the bus and calling out players. Leave that for behind the scenes, because it's just a bad look no matter how you spin it.
Chris, were there moments in that game, especially late in the third and in the fourth quarter, where you felt like that game was just a lock? You felt like you had momentum, or were you kind of, playing ping pong in your mind the whole way through?
I don't know if I ever thought it was a lock, Diesel. I did think when South Carolina went up 10, I think with 9 minutes to go, I felt pretty good about South Carolina's chances. That is until I saw the entire student section doing the Gator Chomp, and I felt like, well, here come the football gods to torment South Carolina yet again. I got a bad feeling that's not going to end very well. The thing that astonished me most, Diesel, was end of that game. I just kept thinking to myself, okay, there's no way they get this fourth down. There's no way they get this fourth down. There's no way they make this play. There's no way they convert this. And you got to give Florida a lot of credit. Obviously we talked about this today. You can look at the South Carolina side and say they imploded, they fell apart, and it's certainly fair criticism and fair to say that. But I mean, Florida, just the clutch factor and the gutsiness, and to do that at Williams-Brice Stadium, and the throws that Graham Mertz made and the plays they made, and I mean, you got to give Florida a lot of credit. So, yeah, to your point, Diesel, I mean, I was confident going in that ball game. I remember sitting there right before kickoff thinking to myself, there's no way South Carolina is actually going to lose this football game, right? Because we saw the Vegas line tumble from Gamecocks to 2.5-point favorite. That game was a pick 'em at kickoff, you might recall. And I'm thinking to myself, there's just no way, right? There's just no way South Carolina is going to allow Florida to come in and walk out a victor. And this is the game they have to have. And again, it looked good for a while, but you got to give Florida a lot of credit for just really, finding a way there at the end. And obviously South Carolina now, you're really left scratching your head and wondering what you're going to make of year 3 of Shane Beamer.
Now, Chris, you ranked the SEC signal callers before the year began, and you had Graham Mertz last. Would you like rice or corn with that crow?
Yeah, Gator fans, definitely. They went back in the archives and found that one. And I'm actually tempted, Mark, to drop some mid-season SEC quarterback rankings just to amend what I did over the summer, what I said about Graham Mertz. And, I was one of many, but obviously I'm the one on your show right now, and South Carolina is the one that played Florida. And again, I notably went on air and said that Graham Mertz was the worst signal caller coming into the season, in the SEC season, if you will. So he's certainly not the 14th best quarterback right now, and I'm more than happy to eat crow, and I tip my cap. And I mean, the dude just played out of his mind at Willie B, and he's been playing well all year, but that was a different level. And again, like I said, Mark, the thing that stood out most was, it's one thing to go out there and do it and play well, but when you do it in those clutch situations and you make those throws down the stretch, and you factor in Florida's road struggles and what he was able to do in overcoming that and exercising those demons. I mean, you can't say enough good things about what Graham Mertz did in that effort.
Now, Chris, so the audience, I don't know that the audience knows this, but with my Flickergate, so I was very disturbed to see that the lights were flickering at very important moments for the Gators at Williams-Brice Stadium during the game. And there is now video that's been circulating about that. Now, Chris and I have got a good relationship, and Chris said, Mark, I don't think this is your best look, and I appreciate that, Chris. You are always welcome to tell me exactly how you feel, but Diesel was unaware of all of this today, and I just said, Diesel, can you watch this clip and just tell me what you see, and tell me if you would also have the emoji where the guy's rubbing his chin and be skeptical if you notice exactly when the lights are flickering. And Diesel, what was your take having seen the video?
Well, I said, I'm not saying that somebody in operations staff had a finger on the button and was pressing a button or letting off a button, but from that video, from the evidence that you showed me, and that's all the context I have, the lights definitely dim and brighten back up at exactly the point of release and at exactly the point of reception.
So Chris, when this is a program, Chris, whose video guy, Justin King, has treated you horribly. Okay. This is a program whose head coach tried to get me fired when I had direct evidence from inside the football building about his OC plans. Okay. And then I had the same people inside the football building apologizing to me for the way their coach was acting. Okay. So to me, Chris, there's such a thing called benefit of the doubt. And South Carolina's program has lost the benefit of the doubt with me. You saw the video, Chris. Does it not look shady to you?
And I'll say this too, Mark. I understand where you're coming from, and I know I talked to you about that this morning off the record, in the sense that I know what it's like, or know what it feels like to feel like South Carolina's kind of got it out to get you, and it's easy to hold a grudge in those instances. But the only thing and the biggest thing, Mark, going against you, and Diesel, here's some context. Our good friend inallkindsofweather.com was there, and I mean, he loathes South Carolina. He loathes them. So if that was happening, Mark, there's just no way he wouldn't have said anything. Like, he would have jumped out of the stadium to say something. So unless he just totally missed it, then, which I just don't believe would happen. Again, Neil is a guy who's pretty smart, pretty clever himself, and he would have he would have been happy to go on record and say something about it. And I'll say this too, if South Carolina did have a finger on the button and they were trying to mess up the opposing offense, they might want to try a different button the next home game, because that button didn't work very well.
No.
Graham Mertz loved whatever lights were shining, and Ricky Pearsall and the rest of the gang, they loved it. So
yeah,
to me, Mark, in my honest opinion, it looked like the lighting from the camera that they were using changed. It didn't look like lighting in stadium changed. And again, I wasn't there in person. You weren't there in person. Diesel wasn't there in person, but there were people that were there in person that say that did not happen. So I would say their word is pretty solid, but I mean, to each their own. That's why I reached out to you. But again, I know what it feels like, Mark, to kind of want to stick it to the man, if you will, and feel like you've got a bone to pick and a grudge to hold. And, that's your business. Obviously, I'm not going to get in the way of it.
No. But Chris, it's more
I learned
just
a long time ago, man, that holding a grudge, it only hurts the person with the grudge. That's why I choose to.
I hear you, but it's more that the Gamecocks and the way they run the football program have lost the benefit of doubt from me. But I do want to ask you, Chris.
Fair enough.
I do want to ask you. My belief is, 90% of Gamecock fans are good people. Okay, they're fiercely passionate about their school and about their team, and I'm friends with a number of them. Ran into some over the weekend. They said, "Mark, give us hell on Monday," and I said, "You don't have to worry about that." But my belief is that these good people deserve better than what they've gotten, Chris. Deserves better than a coach who's 2-4 in year 3 and is throwing the players under the bus. Deserves better than the history. Deserves better than the bottom 10% of that fan base, giving the entire fan base a bad name. Do you not agree that the vast majority of Gamecock fans just have gotten a raw shake in terms of their football product and their football program?
Yeah, Mark, if there's anybody that deserves better, it's certainly Gamecock Nation. I mean, you think about over the years, a long, frustrating history of showing up and showing out and packing the stadium and not having much to crow about. I'll never forget, Mark. I went to a game with my grandfather back in, this was 2006. So this old man is probably passed on by now, but it was 2006. It was the South Carolina Georgia game, and we sat next to a guy who said he was a season ticket holder for 40 or 50 years, something crazy. And he made the point to us that I've been sitting in this same seat for 50 years and I've never had anything to crow about. And that just really stuck out to me, in a sense that, like, there's people that really, are going to these games and have been supporting Gamecocks football and been dealing with the futility for over 100 years. And that's why I'm never a fan, Mark. There's some people out there that want to say that there's a loser mentality in Gamecock Nation. It's the fans' fault for accepting mediocrity. And, I understand having expectations, Mark. We talk about that all the time, that, your program sort of becomes what you allow, but at the same time, to blame the fans who only give their time and energy and money and what have you to the Gamecocks football and Gamecocks athletics, I think is just, you're missing the mark there. Truly, I think there's other reasons why South Carolina has the issues they do. So I think they deserve better across the board. And then you look at this year, and I definitely think, Mark, you start talking about the midway point of Shane Beamer in year 3, and it doesn't look like how we expected it to. It doesn't look like I think how it should. South Carolina was penalized 8 or 9 times in that game. You're making year 1 mistakes in year 3. We're complaining about the offensive line, the secondary, the defensive front. Well, I mean, Shane Beamer, his staff are the ones that put that roster together. So all those holes, all those deficiencies, you knew you had those deficiencies when guys hit the portal or guys hit the draft, and you didn't go out and get anybody, or you couldn't go out and get anybody that can fill those holes and shore up your football team. So they've got to face the music in that regard, and they got to get it turned around in a hurry, or year 3 could completely go off the rails. But certainly if there's any fan base, Mark, out that deserves better across the board, it's South Carolina, excuse me.
All right, Chris, if can you stick for about 5 minutes on the other side, Chris? Would that be okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep it rolling. 5 more minutes. I know Diesel's got something he wants to ask. We got to look ahead to the rest of the season here, because it is just the halfway mark of the 2023 Gamecock season. And my pledge to you guys that me making it personal ends when the show ends today. We go back to typical coverage tomorrow right here on Offsides.
to say that South Carolina's washed. They won't win another game. They're hopeless. They're abysmal. And, you know, it's kind of funny how college football just doesn't work out that way, right? You got to play the rest of them. South Carolina's got 6 more to go. And so it will not surprise me if the Gamecocks do bounce back. And I think with the culture in the building, you know, they've shown over the years that, you know, you look just back, Diesel, to last year's Florida game. South Carolina loses that one 38-6. And just 7 days later, they do the unthinkable and beat Tennessee. And then a week later, beat Clemson, back-to-back top 10 wins. So I don't know that that type of turnaround is necessarily in the cards for this season or these last 6 games. I think the Gamecocks get into 6-6 at this point would be a massive success. And obviously, if you can beat the arch rival, you know, in kind of a down season, that's a great way to, you know, it's sort of bittersweet, but to put a sweet twist on it at the end, if you can go out there and beat your arch rival and get that win and make it back-to-back wins over Clemson, getting them on your home field this year. But I think the Gamecocks, Diesel, they've shown over the first 2 years of the Shane Beamer era, they're resilient, they're a tough group, and I expect nothing less, and I think they will bounce back. Now, will they win the football game? We'll talk about that more later in the week because I think Missouri is a real threat in the SEC, and I think they're a legitimate team in the SEC East this year. So it's going to be a really tall task for South Carolina, and then, of course, you got to go to College Station at Kyle Field, a place you've never won before. So, but all in all, even if Carolina goes down in losing efforts, I do think they'll bounce back in a big way and be ready to go in Como, and they won't let that Florida game linger.
Chris Phillips joining us here on Offsides, the fan upstate. So, Chris, you considered the over-under win total for South Carolina of 6.5, and you and I both predicted the over. How has this team gone from like a national darling at the end of last season, right? Finished last season in the top 25. I heard Gamecock fans say, man, is this year 9-3 or 10-2 or what is this year going to be? Like, what's been the biggest reason that they find themselves 2-4 right now?
Well, Mark, I think the scary thing is that you could argue it's a different thing every week. You know, early in the season, its offensive line play was absolutely abysmal, right? You couldn't protect Spencer Rattler. You couldn't run the football. Now you've sort of got that going, right? Offense certainly isn't the reason you lost to Florida, but now you just can't stop anybody, right? Tennessee, you can't stop the run. Florida, you can't stop the pass. We've seen the secondary be paper thin multiple times this season against Mississippi State and the Gators most notably. So, you know, it just feels like, Mark, if it's not one thing, it's another. And unfortunately, as you know as well as I do, good teams find ways to win football games and bad teams find ways to lose them on a week-in, week-out basis. And I just think South Carolina, Mark, right now is a bad football team. They're just finding ways to lose games. But, you know, this isn't totally shocking, Mark. I'm surprised South Carolina lost to Florida. But, I mean, I had them 3-3 right now, and they're only one game off the pace of what I had them pick to this point. So, you know, I think it just goes back, Mark, to the offseason. This team had real deficiencies and real issues when it comes to roster turnover, what the transfer portal did to them. And nobody, Mark, wanted to hear that. Nobody wanted to hear me out on that or hear anybody else out that, hey, you know, maybe there's going to be a problem area here or there. All everyone wanted to talk about was, but what about Tennessee? What about Clemson? Trust in Shane Beamer. And that was all fine and dandy and everything, but you're seeing this roster has significant holes across the board, right? They can't generate a pass rush. They can't stop anybody in the secondary. They are abysmal tackling, right? The fundamentals, again, year one things in year 3. And then offensively, I mean, the most positive thing you can say right now, Mark, is to go into the last 6 games of the season, you still have Spencer Rattler, right? QB1 is still playing at an elite level, and he's going to give you a chance each and every single week. But, I mean, that is a very razor-thin margin, Mark, to operate on when you have to count on your quarterback basically being perfect every single week. I mean, I looked up at one point, Mark, and I think he hadn't thrown an incompletion, and South Carolina was trailing. And you're just like, what more can he do? Right?
No, he's been incredible. And he didn't sign up
Right.
to have nothing. He didn't have sign up to have no support. And that's what he is.
Yeah.
And I think if South Carolina is able to keep the ship afloat the rest of the year, Spencer Rattler will be the reason why. So let's close today, Chris, with this. Let's do rapid fire style, me, you, and Diesel. Okay? Me, you, and Diesel, rapid fire style. I'm going to give you the game that remains, okay, one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want a number from you, scale of 1 to 10 likelihood that the Gamecocks win it. Okay? 5 means you really have no idea. 1 means you got no shot. 10 means you got no shot to lose. Are you ready? At
Ready.
Missouri, Chris, what's your number?
4.
2.
3.
At Texas A&M.
5.
2.
3. Jacksonville State at home.
9.
9.
9.
Vanderbilt at home.
8.
7.
7.
Kentucky at home.
5 right now. 5.
3.
4.
Clemson at home.
4.
4.
6.
Ooh, Diesel's not feeling. Listen, it got really interesting there at the end, didn't it? Okay, 4, 4, and 6 to beat Clemson. If 15 was the total midway mark, the three of us just gave you a 14. We're almost at the midway point. I think it's a winnable game for South Carolina. Now, winnable doesn't mean they win it. I gave it a 4, but it's not unwinnable, right? I mean, from what you've seen, looks pretty winnable to me.
I just, I felt kind of, I hated to take kind of the coward's way out in a couple of those and be so close to 5. But I just think, guys, with South Carolina, you have no idea. I mean, they're just so inconsistent. And again, when you have a quarterback, you have a chance. And also, some of these teams they're playing, like, what is Texas A&M? What is Kentucky really? What is Clemson, right? And if those games, especially in the last 4, are at home and at night, how much does that, affect? I mean, if you can tell me the kickoff time for the Clemson game right now, I can probably tell you which way that's going to go.
Well,
It makes
especially,
that big of a difference.
if they got a guy playing with the lights when the other team has the ball,
Indeed. At night, it'd be even more noticeable.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
That's
Chris,
right.
the answer to the question, what is Clemson, is exactly why I gave South Carolina a 6 chance to win that football game. We just don't know. They looked awful against Wake Forest.
They did. They most certainly did.
Yeah.
Chris, good catching up with you, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your class. And I appreciate you paying up on the bet. I also paid up on the bet today, Chris. I'm also wearing a Florida hat. So we worked out. It worked out well, man. So good game. That was a hell of a football game. We didn't see 2 supremely talented teams. We saw the battle of mid, as we expected to see. And I'm very grateful that my team came out in the better half of that. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk to you soon, pal.
Mark and Diesel, appreciate you guys. Mark, again, congratulations on the win, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care. Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show joining us here on Offsides. Time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. The top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders. The Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5. It started so well yesterday, didn't it? 14-0 Carolina Panthers. You probably had in your head when Chris Berman used to say, that's why they play the games. And then, well, that's why they play the rest of the game, right? Miami outscored Carolina 28-0 after Carolina was up 14-0 to start. It got off very, very well for the Carolina Panthers with Chuba Hubbard here in quarter number 1, getting things off and running.
Hubbard. Good block in there. Cade Mays, he's got the touchdown with a flag.
Guys, you know what? I don't even know what to hope for with the Carolina Panthers anymore. And I'm not saying I'm coming from a place of hopelessness. I do have hopes that Bryce Young can be something, but you're not hoping for a draft pick. You don't have a draft pick, right? You're not hoping for a receiver because you don't have the capital to give a receiver up, So the reason why we were so against Carolina giving up everything they gave up to go up and get Bryce Young is because we thought it would leave him like this, up Bleep Creek without a paddle. And that's exactly where they've been. This is not a quick turnaround. This is an NFL team that is just not competitive.
Well, ultimately, Bryce Young didn't really play any better in this game than he has in the past. One touchdown pass, and that's it. He fumbled the ball early. Now, it was recovered as he was hit from behind. I was listening. I didn't actually see the play.
Okay.
I was listening on the radio on the way home. But Bryce Young did what he's done all season and nothing more.
Guys, it's tough to find the take right now on the Carolina Panthers. It's like let's just hibernate, wake up in a year, and see if anything has gotten better.
Well, I pulled a stat, Mark, and I meant to share this with you off the air, but I pulled a stat going into the Carolina kickoff show. I wanted to look back 5 years and see when a team bottomed out, where were they 3 years into the future? Where were they 3 years later? And on average, the win total increased by 5.9 wins. So in theory, in 2026, Carolina should have minimum 5.9 wins. But here's what's really, really interesting about this, Mark.
Yeah.
In 13 data points, because I had to go back 8 years to look forward to this year being,
Sure.
So with 13 data points, 62% of the time, 3 years after a team bottomed out, they had a winning record. 62% of the time.
Wow.
And
That's actually
it was
really good.
68% of the time. If you included, there was a team in there off the top of my head. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Jets. They had an 8-8 record. They went 500. So if you include a 500 record as a non-losing season, you got a 69% chance of at least breaking even 3 years from now.
What? Put some sunshine on our rainy day now, didn't
Right?
it? Now, so Diesel, that makes you say, okay, so if we're going to have 6 more wins 3 years from now, hope for as many as you can get this year. If you get 3 wins this year, then 3 years from now, you'll be a playoff team.
Well, the only downside of that is obviously is that Carolina doesn't have a first-round pick next year. So assuming trades don't happen to get them back into the first round, you may delay that by an additional year because you don't have the ability to go get help in the draft next year immediately. Also, you have to factor in, do you trust your GM to go out and make quality trades and do really, really well in rounds 2, 3, and 4? The answer is not really.
It's a really good topic, Diesel. That's really good research, and I love topics like that. Like you said to Chris, can you please have our brain stop working like that? Stop thinking of the same stuff. I hate it. Next up.
4.
All right. A lot of people want to know, Mark, you've been very high on Coach Prime. What do you have to say about the Buffaloes, considering that this is how their game ended on Friday night?
Sanders going to pass it. Can't find anyone. On the move. Finally gets rid of it. Picked off in the end zone. Intercepted by Gilman. With a strong second half for the win. The Cardinals storm into Boulder and run back to the farm in Palo Alto with the dub.
So here's what I think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Colorado had a 99.8% chance to win when they were up 29-0. 99.8%. And I would say, because I'm only capable of seeing things in the big picture, right, that if this happened last year to Colorado, it's a footnote. This happens this year to Colorado, we're all waking up to front page news about it. You know, I had 2 tweets back-to-back in my timeline Saturday night into Sunday. And so when I woke up and I turned on Twitter Saturday morning, these were the first 2 tweets I saw. I saw, man, Stanford has really become a dumpster fire. And then the next tweet above it said, oh, my God, Stanford won. Imagine how confused I was, because I was actually watching it when it was 29-0 Colorado and turned the game off. Colorado doesn't have the roster. They don't have the talent. I'm bummed for Coach Prime because that could be the game that keeps him out of bowl eligibility.
Speaking of all the media attention, I mean, they were getting Deion Sanders was getting spoofed on Saturday Night Live just hours after that game, and they mentioned the Stanford loss in the sketch.
Wow.
So they were watching it live, going back and adding that into the sketch.
Absolutely brutal. Next up.
3.
How about Oregon and Washington? You know, I picked Washington in large part because they were playing at home. I really respected the fact that Dan Lanning owned up to making some dumb decisions in that game. You know, right before halftime, they had the ball in the Washington 3. There was like 2 seconds left. Kicked the field goal. He went for it. They didn't get it. They lose by 3. Okay? And that was one of a few dumb fourth down decisions that Dan Lanning made in the game. The difference between Dan Lanning and Shane Beamer is Lanning immediately owns up to it. And here's what it sounded like in Seattle.
Missed it! And the Huskies survive! Lewis is consoled, and the field is stormed, and Washington has won it.
Are you going to rip Washington Husky fans for storming their own field?
Yeah, it's lame, Diesel. It's lame.
You know, it's becoming a thing where fans are willing and happy to rush their own field just for a big win at home. It doesn't necessarily have to be a major upset. It's just happening. It's happening everywhere.
I don't know, man. You know how I feel about that. Like I'm grumpy old man, get off my lawn guy. I get it. Guilty as charged. That's me. Next up,
2.
At number 2 today, how about Flickergate? Oh, yes, we have started a controversy here on Offsides, my friends. You see, when the Gators were down to their last possession, and in key moments of the series, the lights started flickering against the Gators, the lights of Williams-Brice Stadium. If you want to see this, all you need to do is go to my Twitter page, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC Ryan on Air. And when you see the timing of when the lights flicker, you might be convinced, like I am, that there's no way there wasn't something sinister involved there. It's 4th and 11. Gators take the snap. Graham Mertz drops back to pass Cox's arm. Lights flicker off. Then the lights flicker back on. Now the ball's in the air. The receiver's going to catch it. Lights flicker off again. And it's just like, what?
Yeah, it's just a dip in the lights. Just a little dip in the brightness at that exact moment.
Right, like we have this little dimmer on our lights in here. It's like you put it down, put it up again real fast. Let me see what I can do to create. And it's just, all I'm saying is, folks, do I know that something sinister happened? No. Does it look sinister? Yes, it does.
What I would need to do, Mark, and I have the ability to ask this question of a high-end cameraman for high-end college football. Just so happens to be that my cousin who lives in New Orleans travels with ABC as the 50-yard line camera for ABC broadcast games. For example, last time I saw him, he was running the 30-yard line camera at the Notre Dame Clemson game for ABC. Wow. So what I need to ask him is, and I need more context, is exactly what was going on at that time. Chris made the note there that it could have been the cameraman changing his exposure on his camera. You know, maybe it was getting to the point where they had just gone through dusk and the filter, for example, the filter he had on his camera prior to that wasn't working anymore because it had gotten too dark, so he needed to flip to a different filter. The reason I say that is it's just a really odd time for a professional cameraman to change the filter on his camera at that exact moment. Yeah. At that exact moment, I'm pretty sure these guys don't do that.
Yeah.
Number one, the cameraman doesn't actually control that. It's somebody in the booth. If they even have the ability to change that on these are these old school, like massive, the size of a Canon cameras. They're huge cameras, right? They're not cell phone cameras where you can just change the filter on them. I don't know if the cameraman even has the ability to do that, to adjust his camera, or if that has to be done in the network studio. But I would be shocked if you told me that they were doing that live in the middle of a play late in the game.
Yeah, like it's just weird. And so for me, folks, I don't have any proof. I see what I see, and you guys can be your own judge. But for me, the Gamecock football program has lost the benefit of the doubt. And finally,
1.
Gators, Gamecocks. You know, there's so much to unwrap here. But for me, folks, you know, over the last 12 months, this game was personal. You know, a year ago, Florida beat South Carolina. The bottom 10% of Gamecock fans came after my wife, okay? Came after my wife. I've always been who I am. That's never happened. Never happened to me in 18 years in this business, all right? Then the coach of the Gamecocks decides to try to get me fired in January when the information I had about him reaching out to Garrett Riley was 100% accurate, coming from inside their football building. So you see, when you do that to me, that very, very much is personal, okay? And I am going to delight in that coach's and that portion of the fan base's misery, okay? So if you are a kind Gamecock fan, I do apologize that you're caught in the crossfire today. To me, I put the personal to bed after the show today. Tomorrow we'll be back to a normal show. But yes, I'm very much filled with piss and vinegar today because of what I've been through, all right? Now, the Gamecocks. The coach that the Gamecocks wanted, Billy Napier, is now 2-0 against the coach that they got, Shane Beamer. That is now, we're now 2-0. Billy Napier is. How do I know they wanted him? Because they interviewed him twice, okay? And Billy Napier, there's articles out about Billy Napier talking about the Power 5 job that he turned down. He said he didn't believe they had the infrastructure to win at the highest level, okay? So the coach South Carolina wanted, Billy Napier, is now 2-0 against the coach South Carolina got. From the depths of the Earth's core, the Gamecocks find themselves 2-4. A bit of a bore, searching for more. The mirror reveals there's not much to adore. I wrote that little ditty for you on Friday as well. I thought it was a great win for the Gators. Grit, heart, and determination that we thought was missing from this team. But now they had a 1-7 road record. This game was character building. If Florida can somehow win 2 more games this year, they'll improve on last season's record. And I thought this game was really season shifting for both Florida and South Carolina. The winner is poised to make something of its season. The loser is facing a possible tailspin. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And I never thought we'd reach a point where the Beamer Muschamp comparison would be an insult to Muschamp. But here we are. Beamer is now 17-15 at South Carolina. With back-to-back road games at Missouri and A&M, they lose both of those. Beamer is 500 through year 3. When, my friends, when do results matter? When is Beamer going to accept accountability and not place all the blame on his players? I admire Spencer Rattler and his enthusiasm for his team. He didn't sign up to have nothing around him, but he's been a leader in Columbia. Playing behind that offensive line is, well, offensive. But you never see that in his body language. If South Carolina stays afloat, Spencer Rattler is the reason why. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The MadWorldAttractions.com text line is there for you at 71307 to start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on each one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd love to have you. We're not trying to get rid of Gamecock fans here. We just want you to know that on this show, you get praised, you get spanked when you deserve each one. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Cole Bryson joining us next here on Offsides.
Stream excellent as always. Whoa, that was an expensive drop. Excellent job as always being a part of the show today, man. We saw like 12, 13, 14, 15 people in here for the majority of the show, and that's just awesome. So here's what's going to happen. We haven't talked about this until just now. Maybe in the not this coming segment, but the next segment, I'm going to see if I can get my cameraman for ABC, cousin Renee, to come on the show and talk about the cameras and whether or not they would flicker, if that's something to do with the cameras. We'll see if he'll come on. I can't guarantee you that, but if it happens, it'll happen in the 540 segment of the show. Sound good? Yeah, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be an excellent person to ask that question. That is the only person we could ask that question of and know, is it possible for a cameraman to do that? And would the production crew down in the truck change the filter on the camera mid-play in a game? Weird. So, it just adds a little extra wrinkle to this flicker game.
Gamecock fans, you showed up today, man. And I respect to you for showing up. That's not easy to do. You guys got a lashing today. And I really appreciate you guys showing up and showing out and giving us your honest feedback. Appreciate that more than you'd ever know. And, this show will always be filled with piss and vinegar. Okay, that's who we are. That's what we do. John Mayer told me to say what I needed to say, and I wanted to make sure we did that today. But tomorrow, we let it go off the Ducks' back, and we're back to our regular selves, and we will see you guys there. Thank you, guys.